What's up, bookworms? This is Megan coming at you with another Cantina conversation. Today's episode features a chat with Beth Pellino-Dudzic. We're talking about her book, Playing Hard. That book is available now. I really enjoyed this conversation with Beth. Her book is a kind of loosely based on her own life experiences of traveling with rock bands and the music industry in the 70s and 80s. So this was really cool love story, and I just really appreciated getting to know Beth and her experiences, and as well as what she's got planned for the future. But either way, I'll let you guys get to it. Here is Beth. Okay, we've got Beth Pellino-Dudzic here. We're talking about her book, Playing Hard. That book is available now. Beth, thank you so much for joining me today. This was such an interesting book. I haven't read a rock and romance before, so it was really interesting. I'm glad I got the opportunity to meet this wild band of people and family and that
Yeah.
stuff. So I'm excited to dig deeper about it.
Okay.
Can you give like a summary of the book so that people can follow along with the conversation if they haven't checked it out?
Sure. I had this story in my head for 20 years or a little bit longer, and it was like a hodgepodge. And a lot of it came from my personal experience in the music scene at that time. And all of a sudden, the story flowed through me literally in the shower. And I said, oh my God, I got to write it. And it's about what people went through in the 70s, 80s club rock scene. That meant you were trying to get, because the record industry was different back then, and you want somebody from a record company to find you. And the only way they could do that was to go see you in clubs. And I think
Mm.
the story of the female lead and her cousin have a band, and then she meets the love of her life who plays in another band. And it's the story of how they deal with that being in two separate bands. And then there were certain pitfalls that happen, and they soon make the bands into one. And it is honestly a love story of the two main characters, the male and female, and her cousins involved. And as the book progresses, every member of the band starts to have its offshoot of their personal life and how combined, how all of this affects their band. And it goes into how they make it. And then I will drop a nugget. And once they do make it, then that creates a whole, and that's what two, three, four, five, and probably six will be about, is that even once you make it, your life is not necessarily, hey, I'm the top rock band. And I know that for a fact. It takes their journey from a bar band to making it. But do you know all the things that happen to them? And that's what the books go through. I honestly thought I only had one, and my editor said, oh my God, this is $2. I said, oh. And I ended the book where I did so that you would want book two. And
A little bit of a cliffhanger.
yeah, each of them are going to have cliffhangers. And
Sure.
so then she said to me, hey, why don't you pick up where book two ends? And I said, okay, I can continue the story. And book three turned into book three and four. And as you write, you become more aware of your word count. And I realized that my word count for book four was so over the top that I've moved part of that into book five. I'm three-quarters of the way done for book five, and there will be a book six, which I think will be the end. But in the way I write, I just sit and write and write and write. And there is a story to tell, and the way I want to tell it, I think six will do it. I think five and six will probably be longer books because of it. But yeah, it is a better rock band. It is a love story. It is a music story. It is about rock and roll. My marketing person keeps saying, don't downplay the music, even though it's a love story. And it's a spicy road. It
Mm.
definitely, when you get into book two, there are certain things that my editor said, no, you need to make this love scene more intense. And I said, how much more intense can I make it? But I did do that. And so, yeah, that's basically what the books are about. And I will say that in all of the books, the personality of the lead female character has a lot of my attributes. And there are things that are have been said or happened to me or have been part of my life that I drop in into the book, but I'm never going to tell anybody what those are.
I was gonna say, did you chase some woman in the bathroom, tell her to stay off your man?
I actually have done that. I actually have done that. I will tell you that. I did do that, and it was at a place in New Jersey. Yes, that one was true. And so it's really weird because Gina has a lot of me, but yet when I read the story back, because as I write, and if I have to stop, and then I go back 20 or 30 pages and I start reading it, and honestly, I say, "Oh my God, did I write this? This is really good." But I also
Mhm,
live the emotion of the characters, and there are good things that happen and it makes you cry, and there are bad things that are happen that make me cry, and then there are just especially things with her parents, and that makes me cry, and so it elicits those emotions when I'm writing. So I honestly think it's a good thing to be so tied to the characters that I
mm.
emotionally get involved with them.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Because you wanna, like, communicate and connect with the reader too. Because if you can't get that emotion out of the reader, like, if you're not getting the emotion out of yourself, then it's gonna be really hard to connect with the reader that way. I definitely
Absolutely.
see where you're coming from. Mhm.
Absolutely. And I want you to feel what I feel. And I know that several people have read it and they're like, oh my God, that one scene, it just made me cry. And I said, good, that's what it was supposed to do. That makes me feel good. I'm very proud of it. And I do have three other stories that are totally not connected with this, that keep wanting to jump out. And I keep pushing them back because I didn't think that this series would be 6 books. But
Mm,
I'm happy it is because I think it's a great story. And I just also don't want to stop it just at, and okay. And it's, and okay, what? And okay.
yeah.
So I
If your characters aren't leaving you alone and there's more story to tell, you can't it's hard to ignore.
absolutely. And so that's why I'm dedicated to it. And yeah, I'll be finishing book 5 and going on to book 6. And Austin, which I was very happy that I got into the Austin Book Festival because they made me submit my book and
Okay.
they had to approve me before I could actually be part of it. And my right now, my editor, my publishing consultant, because I'm a self-published author and I do have a team. And the biggest part of when you're doing this, and you probably know this, is the marketing. Right now, it's marketing, and I agreed to do these shows. And little did I know, and you probably know this, Megan, I didn't know that there were actually romance book conventions, which I will be doing in 2025. I just need to pick
Yeah.
a few of them to do, and I'll be doing those, and that's more my audience, right? The book festivals are wide, but I did Portland a couple of weeks ago. And Portland is near and dear because I have two daughters that live there, and my I'll say my new granddaughter, but she's a year old. So going to Portland is always like really great for me, and
Yeah.
I got a great response while I was there, and I did Nashville and that was great. So I'm hoping Austin is that much better. But then
Ye
I'll be switching to the romance conventions, which I've put in, and it's surprising. Some of them are booked up and said, we have authors. And I said, put me on the wait list because I want to do those. Be-
Yeah, no, that's a really good idea. Obviously, there's so much you could do, like, online, digitally, and communities that you can reach, but I think I if you get like a booth and have your work featured and people, you never know what kind of readers, like you might sell like so many copies of your books by just being there.
Yes.
Like I've gone to a couple book events. I would love to go to more of this.
Yes.
But also it all costs money. Other I don't know, Minnesota, California,
Yeah.
like Tennessee, I would be going to all of them because
The,
I and then spending too much money probably too. Like I've got piling up on my stickers, on my swag, on my goodies, all that stuff. Because yeah, it reminds me, it's a good idea because my friend, she's also self-published. She did a trilogy, like a dark romance,
that's the big
spicy,
thing.
steamy.
That's the big thing.
Yeah, and that's what she did. She got a booth at a conference at a book event, and it was her first time like author signing and everything. And she did really well. Like she sold out her books. Like she didn't bring a whole lot because she didn't know what to expect,
Exactly.
but she sold out like pretty quickly. So yeah, I would definitely for especially indie authors like you guys just have to do your best and use all the resources that you can, all the connections that you can to get yourself out there for
Ab-
sure.
Absolutely. And that's why I believe in podcasts. Like when I first started this, when the first book came out, I believe it or not, they were music. That I had so many music people want to talk to me. And that was great. And then I was trying to get on romance podcasts, and my marketing, I call her my marketing guru. And I paid $100 and we split the list. And I ventured out to them and they said, no, you don't solicit us, we solicit you. And I was like, wow. And
Yeah,
I'm starting to build on threads. Instagram, I'm finding a little hard because there's all those collaborations, right? And
yeah,
I do know that with with any bookstagrammers, there is an etiquette, and I love when people say, "Hey, indie authors, put your work up," and I put it up, and then it's, "What are you doing with my covers?" I have paid for some promos, but it's getting the Instagram, and I do put up reels on TikTok, and I have no shame. I will say, listen, if there's an influencer, talk to me, and maybe we'll get a deal. Maybe I'll work with you. I have no. I am not the author who's ashamed. I will go on any podcast, any type of interview. I will put myself out there because I believe in my books, and
yeah,
it's hard. So if I don't brand myself and put myself out there, then yeah, I'm not going anywhere. And I think that's what happens with a lot of indie authors. They're afraid
yeah,
to take those steps, but
yeah.
you have to spend a little money more than, and my book three will probably be out in the beginning because book three and four are already written. So it's
Okay.
just getting it to my editor, and I've got a great editor and I've got a great publishing consultant. And it's just you got to space what you're laying out in funds because you're doing it yourself. And
Right.
even going to these festivals, if I make back the money that I spent on the booth, then I'll consider myself lucky. But it's also getting your face out there,
Yeah.
and that to me is the important part of it.
Yeah, you're not alone because even for myself, I'm not like a book influencer, but I'm like I do the Bookstagram, I do TikTok, like Book Talk, and it's hard. It's hard to even for me who is like trying to find new ways to make sure not only get myself out there, but making sure that I'm doing what I'm trying to do, that I'm
Right.
like connecting authors with audiences, making sure that people are aware of their books. I'm not out here writing book reviews on like super popular world renowned books. Some of them are, some of them aren't because I work with PR agencies too, and I also work with indie authors like yourself, published, where I cover both traditionally published and individual self-published. It's like I've read great books that are both self-published and traditionally published. I've been underwhelmed by books that have been traditionally published and independently published. So it's just obviously it's about taste, but it's like I love that people can self-publish because it gets their work out there. Otherwise, where maybe publishers wouldn't necessarily be able to
Absolutely.
pick up on trends and stuff like that, or like the trends change so quickly. And if you're working with an actual publisher, whether it's a small publisher or a large one, I know that you can start working together, but then the book doesn't come out for another year. And then it's by then everything could
Yes.
change. So it is tricky. So no, you're not the only one. And it's tricky for me to be aware of those things and to help and try to find new ways and find the ways that are working, the trends to help authors reach their audiences and get their names out there, whether what's their 30th book or their first. So it's such a common thing. You're not alone. It's hard.
Yes.
It's tricky.
You're doing a good job by having the open mind, because I investigated, and I had one publishing company in Wales that was interested in my book, and
Mm,
but I was going to give up some of my rights, right? Now,
yeah.
and so when I decided to self-publish, it became, I worked with a publishing consultant. She just, so all of the people who work for me are quote unquote subcontracted, but I own everything. And
Mm,
so I have a great team, and they believe in my work. And I love the fact that my editor was not redlining. She read the first draft and she said, I get it. She got my book right away, and she's the one who kept saying, write the next book, write the next book, write the next book. And so I feel it's a great story, and nobody's writing about, I'm not only writing about a romance, I'm telling you about the music industry
yeah.
for 20 years. Like, I run that gamut. Oh, MTV comes in, and then there's, so I go through the progression. I understand what happened. I was part of it. And so I wanted to marry those things together. And because it is a romance and because it is rock and roll, you have to include the bad side, which is the addiction. And
Yeah, how did you navigate that? Because it's, I guess, content
it,
triggers, things like that. Like, how did you I know you wanted to be authentic and tell the truth, like, not sugarcoat anything, and
right,
obviously, anybody who has an idea of rock bands, especially, like, I'm sure in the '70s, I don't think probably things aren't very different now, but, as
worse,
far as, like, the libations and the excitement and, like, the backstage and, like, the groups and all the attention and
right.
all that stuff, I'm sure a lot of it's, very similar, but how did you navigate that? Because I think that's really interesting, like you were saying that you have experience in this, like, you were living this life for a hot second, and it's the '70s, and so it's a whole different outlook too. Because like, with the romances with the 2 lovebirds, like, it's it because there's questions about his work visa and stuff because he's from
Yeah.
Canada, and it's just so funny how her family comes in and they're like, "We'll help you take care of the calls." There wasn't like, she has no idea.
And there
So,
was,
yeah, I wanna explore how you navigated, like, all of your experiences and
okay,
just and the dark stuff too.
constantly remind myself cell phones weren't out. Or even
Yeah.
at one point, I put something where there was caller ID, and my proofreader said, Beth, caller ID didn't come out yet. I'm like, okay, now I have to change that line. Um,
Yeah.
And as far as now, book two, the woman who does my website and all my book covers, she's a phenomenal artist. And she was so excited about doing this series. And we had a talk about what we did for the cover of book two, Playing High. And I said,
Mhm.
we can't put a kilo of Coke on a, scale, because Amazon
Yeah.
won't publish that. They won't put it out there. So Trevor, as reading book one, has other triggers. He has alcohol. He's got all this stuff in his past. So we stuck with the alcohol for him, although he does do other things. So we figured, okay, we're going to run the alcohol on the cover, but I do get into it in how I don't sugarcoat it, because it was the era where, and plus you were introduced to Brian Mayfield, so me telling you about him and how,
I think I also read, like, the little synopsis for book 2, so I know
yeah,
he's
yeah,
like, Gina was not a fan of him, and now I know he's gonna be the main problem in book 2, so I'm
yeah,
aware of that.
there'll be two main
Yeah,
problems.
yeah.
And yeah, like back then, it was the party at the rock star house and people walking around with mirrors of cocaine. That stuff happened. And it was, are you going to do uppers or,
Like, it was a tray of champagne,
yes,
like, it was
but
just
you
a tray of, yeah,
cocaine.
yeah.
And so I touch on it, they're not saints. Gina is well established that she will smoke weed, but does not that she hadn't done it before, but she said she wanted the band to stay away from that only because that it would ruin their writing ability, which it does. And
Yeah.
she also didn't want the groupies around, which that is a nugget, I will tell you, of me. And it just, if the band, and that's where the bands start splitting up, where when there's too much drugs, there's too many women running around. That's the kind of stuff that splits bands up. And so,
Mm,
because
like the distractions,
yeah,
yeah.
so like she becomes like the mother hen of them, like, I don't want to see you do it. And if I find out you do it, I'm going to kick your ass.
Yeah.
And she basically, when it comes to her cousin, she, can do whatever she wants to him. And then the other band members know that she's hide it from her because she's gonna give us grief. And the worst person that doesn't hide it from her is Trevor. And that is always going to be a narrative that flows in and out of the stories. And when I say that they're both dependent, they're codependent in different ways. And you will find out as you read into the series that they're codependent for different reasons with each other. That's why they love each other so much. But she will protect him at any cost. And so that I weave into, I'm in book 5 and I'm weaving another storyline about their codependence. But their codependence really is how much they love each other, but then other things always come into it that kind of disrupt it.
Yeah, I could see that, and it's like when you touch on Trevor's, like, past and his kind of, like, him hiding it from her versus not hiding it from her because he knows
Yes.
how she feels about it. That's like that rings true, I think, of a lot of substance abusers or, like, borderline substance abusers.
Absolutely.
They're aware of who is, safe to do it around or who, they it's just it's easy.
Until he needs her.
Yeah,
And then I will drop that, like that happens in book 2. It's he can hide it until he can't, and then he needs her. And
yeah. I'm
because
a little curious because you said this kinda you pull a lot from, like, your experiences of being
yes.
in that scene. When I was reading it, I was, "Oh, I wonder how it would have been, like, if you were telling Gina's story from, like, first person versus third person." Was there, like, a reason why you chose that? Did it feel right, or did it seem like it was just you weren't sure? Did you play around with it at all of, like, first person versus third person?
Sometimes I will put the yeah, no, I always thought of it because I had the story in my head for an extreme amount of years, and I raised 3 daughters. Raising my children always came first, but I had the story in my head, and I was getting the way I described it to people was they were glimpses of the story, and it was in grayscale, and the characters didn't have names, and it was just snippets of a story until I'm serious. It came to me in the shower, and it just flowed through me, and I knew that when I told the story, I had to tell it of a fictional character because there are part of the books where I change people's names, but they are people that were real in my life. And some of those people are no longer with us. So I could never.
Mm,
There were 2 people, 2 of my friends from back in the day that said, yes, you can use our names. And I did. I used their names because they allowed. And I saved I saved the text so that they can never come back at me and say, wait. And I said, no, I got the text
yeah,
that you
that's smart. Yeah, you got it in
yeah.
writing.
So I just felt it was better to drop little things about Gina that were really me, but fictionalize it. And for especially everything in the beginning, like the club scene, they're like people who I know from back in the era are gonna know, "Oh my god, she's talking about so and so." I it was
All the juicy gossip, like the pearl clutching moments, like
Yeah, so I said, "No, I have to fictionalize it." So Gina was always going to be, like you said, in that third person as opposed to first person. As you get into the books a little bit, I don't even talk about it from my perspective. I become so much a part of Gina. Gina is part of me that I feel like I am writing about me. And so that's the tricky
Yeah, no,
part.
I think I was just, like, curious because I feel like it would have been interesting to see how it was as, like, a first person,
Hmm.
like, point of view versus third person. Because like, I ask authors like that, like, "Why did you choose this versus that?" Because it's all something like what you're saying, it just felt right, or but some people are like, "No, when I choose third person, they just seem too far away, like, I want them, like, with me, so I do first person." And so, yeah, like, everybody has different reasons, it's, like, how they're trying to tell the story, so
Right.
yeah, I was just curious. Like, there was some times where I'm like, "Yeah, right on," like, I'm over it too, like, I don't want
Yeah.
where I'm like, "Yeah, Gina, I get it." You just set your boundaries, tell them how it is, even if she's like a brat, like,
She's a
she's
bit.
spoiled,
She's a bit.
but it's like she knows it.
Yeah.
"Yeah, I know I live a certain way, I know I've grown up a certain way,"
Yeah.
but it's funny that she acknowledges it, but then she, like, still is apologetic. I'm
Yeah.
like, she's yeah, so what and, like, but she's bold, and she has to be, I imagine, and
Back then, as a woman in that business, you had to be bold. So when you
yeah.
say that I'm talking about it in a third person, when I say that when I start writing from in all of the books, I am not kidding when I say that I take on that I become Gina 100%. So I feel when I'm writing this that I am literally her. And
Yeah.
so to me, it's like I'm speaking in first person because the character has so many of my attributes, so many of the things that I would do. Some of the ways she grew up were the way I grew up. So I feel like,
I was gonna say by your last name, you're definitely in an Italian family,
yes, I will say that.
right?
I will drop this nugget and I can say
Yeah,
this
that's a nugget, that's a safe nugget.
that my father's been gone for, was it 10 or 11 years, and my father was
Aw,
a
I'm
wise
sorry.
guy. My father was a wise guy.
Yeah.
And but I did not live in a palatial estate on Manhasset, Long Island. I grew up in
Mm,
Westchester, so I was not from Long Island, but it's pretty much the New York metro area. But a lot of the things that her father did was my father. So that's, I'm speaking from my perspective that I know. And
yeah.
so that part of Gina, yeah, is me. Like when I said,
The cooking part too, like
"Oh,
the expert at
I,
Italian dishes?
yes, I am." So I'm Italian, and I'm Jewish. My mother's Jewish, so I got the best.
Okay.
I got the best. Like I can cook the best Italian food. I can cook everything else,
All the
and yeah,
recipes.
I can do it. And that,
Or no, maybe you have something like it's in your head, like you don't really have anything written down.
no,
You just like measure what
yeah,
feels right.
I
Like I speak to authors who did a couple culinary cozy murder mysteries and where they try to incorporate like their character is like a huge like cook and does their recipes, their family recipes and stuff like that. And they include recipes in the back of the book. And a lot of the time they say like the hardest part when of developing their story was writing out the recipes because they
absolutely.
had never had to measure before. They
I
would usually
don't.
just know,
I
and so I think that's so funny that it's, like, just
it
cross-cultural. It's yeah.
is, and Christmas is coming up, and
Mhm.
from the time that my girls were young, we would do massive amount of cookie baking.
Pizzelles?
Oh, pizzellis! I don't have pizzelli press, but I do make everything else. And
I used to like my dad, his best friend from childhood, like, best friend since they were, like, teenagers. So, I don't know, my parents were born in the '50s, so there was, like, I don't know, teenagers, '60s,
yeah,
1970. I don't know, they might be, like, right around your generation, so
yes,
they're probably yeah, but his best my dad's best friend was Italian, so I just grew up my uncle being so tight-knit. to the Italian, and I was in charge of making the pizzelle, so
Yep.
pizzelle press. So
Yep.
I was making the batter. I did the little orange zest little
Huh?
kick to it. I did the food coloring to make
Yes.
it like Christmas colors and the cone to roll it
Yeah.
into waffle
Yeah.
cone stuff. Yeah, I know all about that's why I'm like, "Did you make pizzelle?" That's one of the few
I
things I'm like and his nana made a lasagna, her homemade lasagna made lasagna my favorite food for, like, ever. It's just
I stopped making because I had a family of 5, so yeah, a big tray of lasagna now.
it's a lot.
Yeah.
If a family of 5, you're cooking for a family of 5, it's a lot of
Yeah.
work, a lot of
See,
dishes.
to me it's
Like, a
easy,
lot of
but
yeah,
my daughters are always like, when I make these, and they'll say, "Put in a teaspoon of vanilla," and I just take the vanilla and I, like, pour it in, and they're
just
like,
yeah.
"Mom," and I'm like, "No, that's the way you." I said, "We don't cook, we don't measure it out. We just, it's got to feel the
Yeah.
right way." And like when I make my homemade tomato sauce, I switch it up. It's like the freedom of.
That's a whole, like, day process,
Yes, it
isn't
is.
it?
It is. It's a whole thing.
Oh my god, because I think you have to roast the tomatoes
Well,
and, like,
I boil them.
boil them. There's, like, a whole many steps, right?
Yes, and I don't do it
Yeah.
all the time. I admit I don't do it all the time.
It's a lot.
Yeah,
Like, I would who has time and energy for that?
if I want to make time for it, I will. It's my writing has taken over, and my
Yeah.
husband loves my cooking, so he expects dinner every night, and it's what the hell am I gonna make this man?
Yeah.
I'll make a pot roast or something that will last 2 days, and I'll be like, just eat the
Right.
leftovers. I'm writing.
Slow cooker. Oh my god, my husband, like, he loves this barbacoa recipe,
Yeah,
and he does a barbacoa, and he gets, like, the 2, like, straight up thick boys, like,
yeah,
pork, whatever cut of meat that is,
yeah.
and it's delicious, don't get me wrong, it's delicious, but we have so much barbacoa,
And then you're
like,
like, okay,
it's
I'm tired of it.
so much, it's like a huge
Mhm.
I don't even know, it's 5 pounds of barbacoa because he made it for the slow cooker for
Yes.
the recipe, and I'm like, "Okay, give some away, you gotta freeze half of
Yeah.
it, I don't want because I can eat barbacoa breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I'm like, "I
Yeah.
can't."
No.
So I
Here's the thing.
so size like you make yeah, where it lasts a while, so
Yeah.
no, I know about that, I'm right there with you.
For me, my writing is because I will say I still am a clean freak, so I clean my house every day,
Mm,
and then I about 3 years ago I stumbled on the keto diet and I lost a tremendous amount of weight. So I work out 90 minutes every morning. Ev-
that's amazing, that's a really good, like, habit.
Yeah,
I'm
it,
a little jealous. I can maybe squeeze in, like, 45 minutes at
that's
4
good.
times a week.
That's good.
I'm like
45 minutes is good.
Yeah, that's I hate doing less than that. I hate doing less. It's amazing that you do
Yeah,
90 minutes and that you're still health is a big part of your I imagine because you cook a lot, maybe you eat the good stuff, but the keto diet, I feel like I would just miss carbs way too much. So I'm
I
like
will say because we're on the road, and my husband said, "Let's go to Chick-fil-A," and I said, I only want the nuggets that are grilled." And then I said, "Okay, just." I haven't had French fries in a long time, and I said, "Okay, add the waffle fries. I'll work that off." So yeah,
Oh, absolutely. If I worked out 90 minutes a day, I'd be like, "Yeah, give me all the fries."
I'm very good about. I try not to because it. You start running like if you've, and I don't want to say deprive myself because I've gotten used to it, but it's ice cream. I love ice cream, and
Oh, yeah.
if I allow myself to have it, then I'm going to want it all the time, and I just
It's, "Oh, a little bit here is okay, a little bit here
and
is a
then
habit."
you go
Yeah.
down. Then you and so
Yeah.
it's and not I can't eat.
Oh, trust me, when I was pregnant, like, we lived, like, 4-minute drive away from a Dairy Queen. When
Uh,
I was pregnant with my first, it was just, like, I wanted ice cream every day,
and you
but luckily,
should.
I was just like, "No, just give me the mini size," like,
Okay.
the mini
Yeah.
it's, like, half the size of a
Yeah.
small, but I tried, like, literally everything on the menu 'cause I just, like and I literally, like, at least a quarter of the baby weight I gained was probably from Dairy Queen, and
But
it was just
here's
like,
the
"You know what? No regrets." Like, that was
yeah.
the difference between me going crazy and going batshit hormonal
Yeah.
crazy and pitch rage rampage
Yeah.
versus just, "Okay, I'm gonna gain a pound a week, and the baby's loving it, like, whatever." Like, it's just you just gotta but no, that's really great that you have self-control, but I'm thinking, like, I don't know, I've got 2 small kids, and I don't have time for so like, because 'cause I'm looking at my own habits too, and I'm like, "Oh, fries," but then I'm like I try like, when we're out to eat, I'm like to my husband, I'm like, "I'll get a salad and you get fries and we share."
Yeah,
To try to do something
yes.
to try to, like,
And you're
just
right.
make habits like that.
You're right in doing it that way.
Yeah.
When I had my
So, yeah, because like you said, like, you don't wanna feel deprived because
right.
that's when you're gonna overdo it when you do get
You
oh,
go, oh, I'm going in, and you just go, you fall down the rabbit hole, and you do.
you're like, "Fuck it." Yeah.
So, yeah, so the cooking part, but when you said, like, on the back of every book, like, I wrote songs,
Oh,
and
yeah, I think I did notice that. I got I think it was a Kindle Unlimited version
yeah,
I picked up.
and I
Yeah.
did write songs.
So,
I wrote
like your playlist?
my playlists, and I'm adding to my playlists all the time because as the story progresses, Gina has her thing that she likes to sing. She opens up every concert with a cover. So sometimes I'm like, the covers come really quick. I'm like, oh, she's going to sing this. And then sometimes I'm like, oh my God, what is she going to sing? And because they're a hard rock band, sometimes, especially her cousin, will push back on her. And she'll say,
Mm.
I want to do Smells Like Teen Spirit. And he's, oh, Gina, come on. Are we going over grunge again? And she's, yes, I like grunge and we're doing it, and everybody is afraid to say no to her, so we're putting it in. So sometimes they come easy, sometimes I have to think of it, like in I was listening to my Spotify playlist, and sometimes I put it on shuffle, where I say any song that fits my songs. And Wild Horses from the Rolling Stones came on, and I said, oh, that's going to be a cover. She's going to
I
open up the
love
cut.
that
Yes,
song.
yeah.
I love that
And
song. I've heard a couple, like, covers of that too, and it's so good, good.
there are some covers. I'm driving. My husband listens to Octane on Sirius, and sometimes that's a little too hardcore for me. And I said, "Can you at least turn on?" So I got him to put on Classic Rewind, which, and I'll say, "Oh no, change it. I don't want to listen to that song." But music,
It's like a mood thing. It's a mood,
yeah,
right? Whatever you're feeling, really.
and music is a very big part. As soon as my husband goes to work at 7:15 in the morning, I put on Spotify on my TV, and I'm working out and I'm jamming out, and it goes all the way to my workout. And then that's when I shut everything down, and I'm like, okay, I'm writing in the afternoon and I'm writing into the evening. And that's my, leave me alone, everybody.
Yeah.
Um,
You got your routine, you're getting in the zone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and once I'm in it, the only breaks I will give is if one of my daughters call me, because they take priority. They're grown, but they're still
I was gonna say, you don't tell them, like, "No, do not call me during my zone time, during my writing time."
no,
Like, what?
because I got one that's in New York, so there's a time difference, and, and
Yeah,
then I
I see.
got two in Portland, so there's a time difference. So it's like
Are you still in New York?
one of my youngest is in New York, and I am in Alabama, believe it or not.
Okay. Portland, I'm going to Nashville, I'm going to Austin,
Well,
and I'm
yeah,
like,
Portland,
"That's amazing." I love that, and I'm like, "Where is she usually?" Like, where is
yeah,
she
I'm in
permanently?
Alabama, and my husband's driving me to the shows because I have my dachshund, and my mom moved to Alabama,
Aw.
and I can't have my mother watch my dog anymore. So we just, when we can bring the dog, we bring her and we drive. But when I went to Portland, I flew, obviously, because I was also spending time with I hate to say it, my granddaughter, because
Mm,
I don't like
just
minutes.
make it a joke, just be like, "No, I'm only here for her."
No, I told my daughter I'm taking her. I said, I'm taking that
Yeah.
baby. And she's
And what is your daughter like? "Yeah, go ahead." Like, what? I
she's
don't know, I have
mom.
2 small boys.
She's mom. No.
She's still maybe in the sweet
Yeah,
stage, I don't know.
yeah. And I said, no, I'm taking that baby. She's
No, my boys are 3 or almost 4 and 7, and they're just separately, they're great. Together, I'm repeating myself and telling them to stop messing with each other.
yeah,
It's not, like, hateful, it's like they're just roughhousing or they're, like, jumping around, and I'm just like, sometimes I let so much stuff go, but at the same time, I'm like, how many I sound like a broken record player, and I'm like, okay, if I'm losing my shit, like, usually I'm a patient person, and I'm like, my husband's the one he has, like,
a short fuse. He'll lay the hammer down a little sooner,
They're not.
but they're like, "No, mommy told you twice now. What the F are you
Yeah.
doing? What?"
I will say I had 3 girls in 6 years, and I was
Okay, yeah, so 2 years apart each.
yeah, 18 months, and
That's how it was, like, boom.
I was living in Hawaii, and that's my first marriage,
Mm.
and I hated living in Hawaii, so I was alone.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay, so we, like, sorry, no, I don't mean to interrupt, like,
yeah,
your story, I wanna hear it, but, like, my husband and I, for our 10-year anniversary, we chose Hawaii, and it was great.
it's great to
But I guess I could see, like, how
far away.
the relaxation and the hype, like,
It's great.
gets old.
It's great on
Yeah, it gets old because you know you're going home.
and you're so far away, and I was there by my mom came out for a month to help me.
I could see how that's isolating if
It's
you're as a new mom, as a new wife, all
very
that.
isolating, and one of the
Yeah.
reasons and I was like, first of all, I didn't marry the right person the first time, but and I would say to him, I have to get off this island. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. And then you get involved in your kids' school. They went to private school, and my ex-husband was
Yeah.
very wealthy, so everybody thought I had a beautiful life. And it's no, but I'm really freaking unhappy. And
Yeah.
I took my 3 kids and moved back to New York. And I think that was the best thing for them, so they didn't grow up in that total isolation of Hawaii because it is isolating. And
Yeah.
daughters are different. They were great. They were great babies. They were great as little kids. And once they get their period for the first time, life goes downhill.
Oh, it's like a one
And I
yeah.
grew up with brothers. Like, I'm the oldest, but I have 3 brothers. My brothers played sports, and like you said, they would beat each other up, and then it was like, "Oh, okay." And so I
Yeah.
understood boys, but I had these 3 girls, and then when they all were PMSing, it was like, "Oh my god, I wanted to rip my hair
Oh
out."
god, especially 3 girls,
3
2 years
yeah.
apart, yeah.
And then mommy too, that
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Oh my
it
god.
was the house of PMS. Girls are great,
It's
but
just like a part of life, but it just sucks for it's
yes.
not fun for anyone, not for the people who are going through it, not for the people who are in that circle.
To this day, if one of my daughters becomes very adversarial, the other one will call and say she's on her period, and it's oh okay, I that makes sense now, why she was being
Right, it makes sense, but it's okay. I'm like, "Don't use that against her." You know what I
no,
Come on, we're
totally,
all in this together, just
totally,
understand it. It's, "Oh, she's having a hard time right now.
yeah,
She's on her period." And it's funny, I love how the conversation is online with just the shifting in information because it's I think, something I never learned in school was where, like, there's literal weeks, like, this week 1, we're good, week 2, we're fantastic, week 3, we, like, wanna kill
yes,
people and we like are like don't touch us. Week 4 is the
is the
men's week.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah. And so it's just like a thing and it's no like you guys don't understand what we're up
no,
against. I'm
no.
in week 2 right now. I'm going to be fucking fantastic and cheerful and happy and ready to take on the world, but in 10 days I'm gonna be a different
And
person.
I
So it's I
yeah,
feel yeah, it's so important to, like,
yeah,
be aware of that, to just be like, "Am I crazy?
no,
Am I losing my shit? Oh, no, I'm just gonna get my
yeah,
period," and,
that's it, and
it's yeah.
we've all dealt with it, and
Yeah.
like I'm still dealing with my daughters, and like 2 of them will say, "Do you know why she's like that? Because da 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 da," and I can just tell just by the conversation I'm having, and I'll say, Are you PMSing right now?"
You
And they're like,
you know your girls, you know your girls.
and
So
they're like,
you're like,
"Yes,
you
mom,"
yeah,
and I'm like, "Okay, that makes sense."
yeah.
But now the funny thing is that because I write a highly sexual nature to the book, my biggest fear was my daughters reading my books and
Oh,
them
no.
saying, "What the hell is she thinking when she wrote this?"
Like, "Wait, mom, you know about this? You think like this
Like
on paper?"
you're like, "Wait, what?" And
Yeah.
so when I was reading them excerpts and I said, "Oh, okay, I'm going to stop here." And they're like, "Why?" And I said, "It's a sex scene and I don't feel comfortable reading that to you." And they're like, "Why not?" And I said, "No, I'm not doing it." I said, "If you want to read the book and read it for yourself, then do it, but I'm not reading it to you. I'm your mother and I can't."
I'm surprised they were like, "No, read us a sex scene,
They
mom."
wanted me to and I said, "I can't do it. I can't. I just can't do it." And so this for them has, they're like, what is going on with you? All of a sudden,
And you're like, "I've been writing this for 20
yeah.
years." Like, what?
I said, I raised you guys, and that was the best job I ever had, is being a mom, and you know that. And then life gets in the way. You go through a bad divorce, and then you get remarried. And I had a great job at IBM, and I was a single mother, and you put it off. And I always knew, right? Like back in the days, was I supposed to sing? I probably should have sang. I'm getting my singing voice back together.
Gonna say, do
Yeah,
you ever, like,
I
dabble? Do you because I
dabble,
cannot carry a tune in a bucket. Like, I
dabble,
wish I could sing. I do not have a good voice.
I dabble.
And
Yeah,
yeah.
I should have done it, but didn't have. We think that, like, when Gina says she's very average, I look at myself very average, and all the guys from that time period say, "Oh my God, you didn't realize you were that hot," and I said, "I was, and I didn't know it. Oh my God, my life would be so different." But you don't. You're not self-aware. And as you get older, you say, okay, I didn't do this and I didn't do this. And I know I was meant to do something. And did I think it was writing books? No, but I think I'm really good at it. And so I took that creative process and put it into the things I love, music and acting, kind of writing. I'm like acting the scene as I'm writing it. So it for me is really great. And this was the time to do it. And even though it was like 20 years later, I did finally get to it. And that's why I believe it's going to be, with constantly promoting, it's going to be big. And of course, on my TikTok reels, I always say, I list a bunch of bands that I love, and I say, hey guys, I know you don't need my songs, but here I am. Help me out here.
You're trying to set the vibe, right? Set so what people can expect
Right.
from your books.
And I've had people say to me, this could be, with streaming content and everything, somebody might want to pick up your books and make a series. And I said, they're not. I'm writing the screenplay. I'm not letting, I've seen too many stories that I have read go into being whatever, and they've changed it.
Yeah.
And I won't let somebody do that with my story.
Unfortunately, that's so common where it's like you to get that notoriety and to get that exposure, that it's like that. It
Yeah.
totally does. I feel you. I know what you mean. Okay, I definitely want to throw this at you. Two-parter. What were the most you touched on this earlier. What were the most challenging parts to write? What were the most enjoyable parts to write?
The most enjoyable, I think, is the love that the two main characters have, because you explore what we all think is that ultimate love, right? And we can all say we love our spouses and stuff, but when you write about that ultimate true love that we picture in our minds, I feel like that was the best part. The hardest part was, and you need to have it, that is, and I'm dealing with that now with the later books, is you need to create a terrible conflict or something, and you need to add that into the book to make it interesting. And I know where I'm going, and there's going to be some really hard parts for me to write, with the characters having some major issues. And that's always
Yeah.
hard because you're creating turmoil, and you're like, but I love these characters. Why am I creating
Yeah.
turmoil? But you have
You don't want to put your characters through it. Yeah.
but you have to. If you want to make
Yeah.
it interesting, you need to add the good with the bad. And if you
Yeah.
don't, then it's not an interesting story. You need to have a little of that upheaval.
You wanna challenge your characters,
Yes,
otherwise there's no
absolutely.
engagement, there's no growth, no connection,
Exactly.
they're just
It's
there.
boring. It's a straight
Like,
line.
yeah.
It's a straight line. So it needs to ebb and flow.
Yeah, no, I absolutely, you got it. What another two-parter, I'm gonna throw it at you. What advice do you have for Gina? What advice do you have for Trevor? And let's maybe focus on the end of book 1. What advice would you give to them? Because I know you're, like, in your mind, you're
I'm
like,
at
"No, I
book
know what
five,
they're
right?
doing."
Yeah.
Yeah, advice without spoiling things.
I think Trevor should have maybe came at the question that he leaves for Gina a little bit sooner. He may have He should have probably locked that down a little bit quicker than he did. And for Gina is the jealousy, the so dependent that she is on him, that she can loosen up because he really does love her, and she just never thinks she's
Mm.
good enough for him. And if she loosened up, she would be okay, but she doesn't realize it.
Gina is not one to loosen up
No,
at this
no,
point, is what I
no.
from my perspective.
Yeah, no, and
And I would, yeah, I'm with you, I would wish that for her. Like, "Girl, choose your battles, loosen up, it's
yeah,
not."
you
I know I can understand her kind of heightened anxiety about some things,
right.
but then at the end of the day, it's okay, it's
Yeah,
just she's
yeah. She's always afraid of
Yeah,
losing
absolutely.
him. She's always afraid of losing him. So she,
Yeah, and it's that's just, oh god,
yeah,
where we're all of us tied down by love
yes,
that
exactly.
unfortunately conquers, at
Yeah,
least from what it was definitely, it's definitely a love story, but it's definitely a love story in such specific
yeah,
specific situation and challenging
yeah.
situation. So it's just like they, at the end of the day, they're trying to make it work, but at the same time, it's they can't ignore what's in front of them.
And
No, I totally agree with it.
book two is a wild ride. I will say that. I go all over the map in book two, and all of them. And you're just going to see a whole bunch of stuff and be like, I know Beth told me about in book three, and they know where this is about it. We could talk again about it when you get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I'll wrap this up by saying, yeah, absolutely. If and when you want to come
And
back again,
anytime you want.
when you're not on the road,
Yeah,
right?
no, after this, I'll be. But anytime you're like, hey, I'll be there to do it.
No, absolutely, I appreciate it. So, where can we find you online and on social media?
I'm on all social media. I'm on everything. I have two Facebook accounts. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Threads, X. I even have a YouTube channel, which I haven't been keeping up with. But yeah, I'm on everywhere. Instagram. Yeah, I'm everywhere. And it's usually B. Polino Dudzik or Beth in Perfection one, I think is TikTok. But on my Facebook page, I list all of my where you can find me.
Oh,
Yeah,
perfect. Yeah, because I want to include links in the show note
yeah,
as long as there's one home
yes.
where everybody can find you. Yeah.
On my Facebook.
Because we'll just follow you on
Yes,
everything. Yeah.
yes, and my
Yeah.
website.
Perfect. Perfect. Beth Pellino-Dudzic, playing hard and playing high, and also 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever you
I
got going
yeah,
on,
I
that's available now.
yeah.
And looking forward to the rest of the saga. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
adjustable, being
Yes,
flexible, and I'm so excited for you going to your
thank
book
you.
event in Austin. It's gonna be, you're gonna have so much fun.
I will.
And
And
yeah, like I said,
hit me
when
up.
and if you're ready to come back,
I
let me know.
I'm ready when you're ready.
And there you go. That was Beth Pellino-Dudzic talking about her book, Playing Hard. That book is available now, along with the sequel, Playing High. Check out the show notes where you can find links to purchase the books online and on social media, and where you can find Beth online as well. Check out Cantina Book Club while you're at it on your favorite social media channels and your podcast player and on YouTube. Rate, review, subscribe, all that good stuff. Check out kidtobookclub.com where you can find book recommendations and reviews if you're ever looking for something to add to your reading list, whatever genre you're into. Hop on over to Amazon and Goodreads if you are finding authors and their titles that you enjoy, and go ahead and give them a rating and a review. It really does help the authors out. And as always, thank you guys so much for listening.